Hey guys, how's it going? I'm here to show you that you too can make your very own generic vaporwave aesthetic sunset scene. So I'm assuming you have some Blender knowledge here. I'm just going to kind of breeze through this. I don't like tutorials that take way too long and just showing you basic things you already know. Any questions, feel free to ask. So for starters, let's throw in a plane, scale it up by 8, and we're going to subdivide it. So each subdivision square is going to be the square on your grid on the floor. So that's good. I'm going to let's grab the camera first, scale it up so it's not in the plane. Open the UV editor. And we're going to import a square mask that I made. I will throw this in the description so you can grab it. This is the easiest way I've found to do this type of thing. You just select everything, reset, so that all the UVs are reset, and they're now conformed to that image. So let's see what that looks like. Let's throw on a material, add an image material, add that square mask that we just added. Go into material view, and there you go. Let's move the camera up off the ground a bit. And let's see what that looks like. All right, we're already looking good. The thing you want to look for here is you do not want the edge of the plane to be in the camera view, which it's not, so we're good. Now we want to make the world black. So the best way for me to do that is just to select a Voronoi texture, set the strength to 0, and we're done. So there's a million ways to do that. Whatever you want to do, it doesn't matter. Let's get rid of that diffuse texture and add a mix shader. Plug the color into the factor, set it to non-color data, and add an emission. So let's see what we've got so far. Let's plug that emission in. We want to plug it into the bottom. Uh-oh. Oh, it'd help if we plugged the mix shader in, huh? So there we go. Most of our work is done here. Let's set the strength to 2. And let's pick our color. I like this. The floor is almost done. I like to add in a glossy shader. You don't have to. But once we get the sun in there, it will reflect the sun on the grid. It will look really nice. So that's it for now. Let's name this material floor so we don't get confused. And let's add in a circle, rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees. Move it back a little bit. And let's scale it to how we want it. Let's go into edit mode and give it a face. And then subdivide it. I just pressed Control 2, which is a quick way to add a subdivision. We just don't want it to be jagged. And then set it however you want. Size, the height is up to you. Let's head back into material view. Let's give this guy a material, call it sun. And we're going to follow the same principle as a floor. I'm going to import, well, first let's just throw in an image texture, plug her in, open. I have a scanline texture. It doesn't matter really what you use. You don't even have to use a texture for this. But here, let's project from view. So I think the scanline looks nice. A lot of times you'll see like kind of a scanline, but like at the bottom it's very thick and it progressively gets thinner. I'm sure that there's a mask for that floating around, or you can just make one pretty easily. So that's good. What I'm really looking for is white on the top and white on the bottom. Other than that, it doesn't matter. It's up to personal. It's up to you how you want to do it. So let's get rid of this diffuse because we don't need it anymore. We just wanted to see what we were doing. Add in a mix shader, plug the color into the factor, turn off that, or at least set it to non-color data, plug it into surface, add an emission, plug it into the bottom here. Yep, that's what we want. Because again, we want the color to be at the top and the bottom. Again, that's just a preference. It doesn't have to be, but set the emission. I'll set it to 5 for the sun. Pick our color. I like this. So let's see what we got going on. All right, looking good. I like to get a little bit more in depth with it. So again, you don't have to do this, but I'll copy the mix shader. Put the emission into it. Grab another image texture. And I went to Polygon and grabbed some grunge masks. You can get grunge masks anywhere. But plug that into there. So it kind of just gives it some texture, I guess. It's not just a pure color. Sometimes you want that pure color look, but I kind of wanted to mess around with it. Let's throw in a transparent. Plug it into both. And we're looking pretty good. One final touch, I'll add another UV map and name the first one Scan Lines, name the second one Grunge. Add a UV map node. Plug the top one, or plug this into the Scan Lines texture. Pick the Scan Lines UV map. Copy it, change it to the grunge, plug it into the grunge texture, and what this does is allows us control over each one now. So if I want to change the scan lines, I can just select the scan lines here and do so as I please. If I want to adjust the grunge, same thing. Select the grunge there, change it. So that looks pretty nice. All right, so that's what we've got so far. Now I'm going to add the sky. The sky is basically going to be the same as the sun. I'm going to add a plane rotated on the x-axis by 90 degrees. And I want to bring it here and I want to scale it so that it covers the camera. Then we're going to subdivide it. That's good. Twice is fine. We're going to add a material. Actually, let's just add the sun material and then make a copy of it. So this is what we've got so far. You'll see the UV maps have gone red. Let's rename sun.001 to sky. We're going to add some UV maps. Name them exactly the same as the sun was. Make sure it is case sensitive, so make sure it's exactly the same. And now those aren't pink anymore. So scan lines, we're gonna unwrap the entire thing. Grunge, unwrap the entire thing. All right. We're going to change the color because we don't want it to be the same color as the sun. I'll change it to this blue. And lower the emission to about 2 because you don't want it to be overshadowing the sun. I don't like how it is like clearly, it just clearly stops. So we're going to add a gradient texture. Copy the mix shader, plug the color into the factor. Set it to easing. So you'll see, especially in material, that it's going to the side. We want it to be at the bottom. So I'm just going to rotate this. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. So I rotated it, but you cannot be in edit mode. And I set this to easing. Let's plug the transparency into right there. Let's see what we're looking at. Oh, perfect. It fades out. Only problem is now we're on the side, so we want to go into each individual UV for it. Rotate them by 90 degrees. And we're looking pretty good. So that's the gist of it so far. Now I'm gonna do the same thing to the floor because you have a very clean end there, and we don't really want that. It kind of breaks the illusion of being this sprawling land. So I'm gonna click on that, copy the mix, add in gradient texture, plug it in there. I'll just keep it at linear. Let's go into material view, and we see again it's off to the side, so I'll just rotate it. Rotate on the z-axis by 90. Again, there's cleaner ways to do that, but it works perfectly fine for this. No need to overcomplicate it. Add a color ramp because if we keep it as is, oh sorry, let's add a transparent as well. If we keep it as is, you can see the sun through the floor. We don't want that, so we'll just move this up until we can't see that anymore. And then, yeah, it looks really nice. So let's see without it. You can see the end with it. You can't. Okay, so next I'm going to, in the original image, you could see it was like in a valley. So I'm going to do that now. Select the sides, turn on proportional editing, and I went with random. Scale by Z, make sure that the circle encompasses everything, so that the editing acts on the entire mesh. Let's check out how that looks. Something like that is fine. I'll set it to smooth shading because it kind of gets rid of some errors there. See, you can see where it's black and blue, but if you do smooth shading, it kind of smooths it out a bit, for lack of a better term. So that's about all the modeling. I'm gonna add a cube for. I like to add volume to these kinds of scenes. So you want to make sure that the cube encompasses everything the camera sees. And we're going to assign a material to the cube. Call it volume. Add a volume scatter. Plug it in. Get rid of this diffuse. Set the density to 0.01. Should be okay. You don't need a lot. Just something to make it more interesting, I think. That way it's not purely black. It looks like it has atmosphere, basically. And this is a big tip for a lot of things. Just adding a little bit of volume scatter will make it look a lot better. Of course, it does increase your render time, so it's something you want to save for last. So that's about it. I'm going to render this out, and then we'll hop into the post-processing. But first, I'll show you the render settings that I'm going to go with. Typically, I would do like 200 or 400%, but just for this tutorial, I'll do 50%. And then sampling, I want 500. Again, you can go more. It depends on your computer, but you know the rule of thumb is the higher the resolution and the more samples you can get, the better you're off. So just go for as high as you can. So I'll hit render, and then we'll hop into post-processing. Okay. One thing I didn't cover was, in my image, I had palm trees and a dolphin. All you do is make a model or import one, add the wireframe modifier, and just put an emission on it. I didn't feel like that's worth going into. So let's hop over into the compositor. And first and foremost, I will throw in a hue saturation value and just set it to something low, like 1.1 maybe, just to make it a little bit more dramatic. I think we can maybe even go lower. That's fine. Just see the comparison. It just adds a little bit more contrast, I guess. So first I'm going to play around with some glares. Let's set it to high quality. Okay. So threshold, I'll keep it at 1. Yeah, we'll keep that at 1 for now. Grab another glare, set it to fog glow. And what this does is just kind of makes the bright parts glow a little bit more, especially the ones closer to the camera. So let's set to 0.5. We've got that. I mean, that looks pretty cool. I'm not going to spend too much time on these. I'll just show you what I would typically do. Something you can do then is add a blur, set it to like 8 and 8, and then add a mix. And then mix the blur in with what you put into the blur. So this is just a way to make colors pop a little bit more. So let's see the blur. That's just a blurred image. So if we set it to about 0.9, you can get some nice like color accentuation. So let's see what that looks like without that blur. Yeah, so it just kind of makes the colors pop a little bit more. And then last but not least, everyone's favorite, some lens distortion. I like to add a little bit of distortion. I think it makes the image less flat looking. So then we'll click fit. Just looks a little bit more like a photograph. Just, yeah, kind of bends lines a little bit, makes it look just again less flat. Then dispersion. So this is kind of a hot topic. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people complain when it's noticeable, but at the same time, if you're using it creatively in an effect, like no one has the right to complain about that. I understand if you're going for something photorealistic, but something like this, just go with what you like. So 0.05 looks pretty good for this. You know, you kind of want like that VHS-y kind of look. You could throw this into GIMP or Photoshop for some chromatic aberration as well, just to separate everything more. But yeah, that's the gist of what I do in Blender. At this point, I would bounce it out to GIMP, maybe put an overlay over the top, like maybe scanline the whole image very, very lightly or something like that. But yeah, that's the gist of it. Any questions, feel free to ask. I know I kind of went through it fast, but again, I'm just trying to get... I'm assuming you have knowledge of Blender. If not, that's totally fine. Feel free to ask any questions. Yeah, I hope you learned something, and have a good day.